parties because they don't want to be patronized. Let me move on to Morris Tan, ambassador. He was the ambassador at large for global criminal justice and South Korean, which I'm very proud of to be able to sit next to you. We know that there's been peace on the Korean Peninsula for 7 decades. And the primary reason for that is not because the North Koreans have decided that they really like South Korea or whatever. The reason, of course, is because of the U.S.-South Korea Mutual Defense Treaty, where both countries pledged to defend each other. There are a lot of people on the left in South Korea, pro-North Korean sympathizers. They want to end the treaty because they believe that if the U.S. is off the peninsula, then clearly North Korea will be able to take over. So what can South Korean conservatives do in CPAC Korea and in other organizations? What can they do to strengthen the treaty?
That's a great question and an important question, Gordon. Let me be very clear that North Korea's goal is to get the U.S. not committed to defending South Korea. And the U.S. commitment to defend South Korea has been the single biggest deterrent against another full-blown Korean war. Because North Korea's ultimate goal is to take over the peninsula by force. And so conservatives in South Korea must build strong ties and ongoing strong ties with the United States of America. It was not an accident that it was the admiral of the U.S. Pacific Fleet who was made the U.S. ambassador to South Korea. That was sending a strong deterrent message during the last Trump administration. And it is crucial for that U.S.-Korean alliance to be as strong as possible. And I will also include Japan in there too. There have been some historical difficulties that were stirred up by the Moon Jae-in administration vis-a-vis Japan, but the US, Japan, and South Korea must stand strongly together in that region against the threat of North Korea, but also in regards to the threat of the Chinese Communist Party. That is very important. And if I were to give an example, hopefully that ties together some of the things that are going on and why it is very important for the U.S. to stay engaged and to have a strong presence there, I want to tell you the story of Kang Chol-hwan. There was the first book-length account of any North Korean refugee called The Aquariums of Pyongyang that was about Kang Chol-hwan. He was part of a Korean family in Japan whose grandmother was a committed communist and convinced the whole extended family to move to North Korea, which was supposed to be this communist paradise. Well, they went, but what happened? The grandfather, who was in charge of distributing things at the behest of the North Korean government, not only him, but the whole extended family, when they ran afoul of the Kim regime, were thrown into a concentration camp. Every day, that grandmother apologized to her family for urging them to come to communist North Korea because they were wasting away in a concentration camp. And Kang Chol-hwan was just a boy at that time. He eventually got out, and this account of his life was published. But North Korea is not a paradise. It is one jail of a country. And it is what happens when communism has been tried anywhere in the world. It means that the communist elite sees everything and crush their own people. And you have the purest form of communism in North Korea combined with the fourth largest military. All manner of weapons of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, chemical weapons, biological weapons. I do want to share, because the time is limited, CPAC was involved in putting together the largest conference on North Korean human rights in Hawaii this past December 4th. This booklet gives an account of that conference and is available for free for anyone here who wants it. You're welcome to come and get a copy, and I think there are more copies than those that are here. But you had the U.S. Special Envoy for North Korean human rights, you had the South Korean analogous position person, myself and others who were involved in this conference, and can give you more than a short few minutes here that I could possibly give in a short amount of time right now.
Thanks, Morris. Hey, Steve Bannon. You can see that it's Australia, Japan, South Korea are all treaty allies of the United States. What holds our treaty network together is the U.S. Navy. And in a prior life, before you started draining the swamp and all those other critical tasks, you were in the Navy and you were actually assigned in the Pacific. If you can just sort of talk a little bit about what you did there and how important the Navy is.
Well, I was in the 7th Fleet on a ASW destroyer, the USS Paul S. Foster as the assistant engineer and then the navigator. We trained with the Koreans, trained with the Japanese. The Australian Navy was unbelievable. There's a real bond, and that was in the Carter administration. And we could see how the Soviet Union was increasing in power. I mean, we were an anti-submarine destroyer, and we tracked Soviet submarines, right, in the South China Sea and down to the Straits of Malacca, all of it. Indian Ocean, Persian Gulf, North Arabian Sea. And then I came back to the Pentagon to work as a special assistant to the Chief of Naval Operation on the day that President Reagan came into office. And so I saw up close what it took to take down the evil empire. And you're not seeing that today. I mean, my beloved Pacific Fleet, if the balloon went up in the South China Sea or the Straits of Taiwan, I fear what would happen. I mean, I think right now against the PLA, if we had to break a blockade, a naval blockade of Taiwan, you might have a carrier battle group at the bottom of the ocean. You could lose 7, 8, 9, 10,000 sailors. This thing is atrophied under the Biden regime tremendously. And I think that's one of the reasons that President Trump, in coming back in, will strengthen the Quad and strengthen this with a real focus on confronting the Chinese Communist Party, particularly with its military buildup.
Thanks, Steve. Very quickly, I just want to run through the 3 countries. So, Coops, the next CPAC Australia is September, right?
No, it's August, 10 and 11 of August.
Okay. Yep. And what are you guys going to do? Now that you've defeated the voice referendum, I mean, you got to have something else, right?
One of the most important jobs to be done in Australia is to remove some of the premiers that are destroying the country. The next election is in a state called Queensland. My hometown is Brisbane, and we're taking CPAC out of Sydney for the first time. We're taking it to Queensland because we want to help take down, what did you call it, Steve? The evil empire.
Gold Coast. Okay, Jay, your next CPAC is December. I hope I got that right. What are you guys going to be talking about?
さっき冒頭でスティーブン・バノンがこの会議のテーマというのが、グローバリストの終焉みたいなことを言ってましたよね。
So actually, Steve Bannon just mentioned that CPAC is where globalism comes to die, or globalists come to die.
で、今年の CPAC ジャパンは12月8日で、ちょうどトランプ大統領の選挙が終わって、彼が当選してから約1ヶ月後の CPAC ジャパンになりますと。
And so we're hosting CPAC Japan on December 8th. It'll be right after Trump is reelected.
なので、もうテーマはもう決まってるんですと。それは、ナショナルコンサバティブの機関、The Return of あれだね。
And so we're thinking, or we're going to call the theme for this CPAC Japan, the return of national conservatism.
And by the way, I should point out that your last CPAC was overfilled the room. It was just record-breaking.
前回おかげさまでゴードンちゃんもマット・シュラップ、そしてメルセデスも来てくれて、本当にもう会場が溢れるようになりました。今年はさらに規模を拡大して、スケールを大きくやりたいと思っています。
Yeah, thanks to you, Gordon, and Matt and Mercy. It was the biggest we've ever had. The room overflew, and we're planning on making it even bigger this year.
Congratulations. And Morse, you work with a real Korean hero, Annie Chan. And she's the one who started Korea CPAC. She now has this new global strategy study committee. What are you guys going to be talking about next?
So there's going to be another conference in March that is going to be taking up the important matters that are going on. It's going to be in Hawaii. There will be Andrew Crilly here has invitations for you all to take, and you can apply to be invited and go to that. And it should be another fantastic conference. Annie Chan is someone who has invested her great wealth into trying to find solutions for what's going on in the Korean Peninsula, with the 4 largest militaries involved there, with the refugee problem of those who are crossing the border, which is basically a high crime in North Korea, but they are being sent back often to their death or to concentration camps back to North Korea, a different sort of problem there. But there is a whole constellation of problems in that region that are very, very important to address, that I think will be critical for the, I believe, next Trump administration to handle.
Just a quick comment about Korea. I just think we should give credit to President Trump. Because of his historic, never happened before diplomacy, he kept us out of war with North Korea in the beginning of his administration. He's admitted it publicly, and we know that the generals were all ginned up for this, and it was coming. So President Trump kept us out of so many wars, but the Korean War was an important one.
You're exactly right, Carla. You know, when he was coming into the White House, President Obama said, your biggest threat, the biggest thing that you'll have to handle will be the threat of a war with North Korea. That's what Obama said to him on the way in. It did not happen. And not only that, a lot of positive things happened. The remains of U.S. personnel from the Korean War were returned. The rhetoric against the United States of America and against Trump himself stopped. The propaganda coming out of North Korea. In addition to that, our citizens, the American citizens who were in North Korea, were brought home. There was a whole array of positive things that happened. And this is something that I've been sharing in various public settings after our time in the administration, because I believe President Trump did a better job vis-a-vis North Korea than any president has since the Korean War.
You know, it's ironic, of course, that the Biden team says, oh, you know, if Trump gets elected, there's going to be war. But as Rick pointed out, there was 4 years of peace, and there were 4 years of historic accomplishments, including the Abraham Accords. Last word goes to Miklos, but before I do that, I have to say that I hadn't realized it, but you know, you guys, you 3 CPACs, have got the best locations. You got Brisbane, the Gold Coast, you got Tokyo, which really is one of the most exciting cities on earth, and Hawaii. I am jealous. I am jealous.
Hey, Hawaii is ours. I don't know what you're talking about. That's one of ours.
Miklos, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, just because praising and promoting ourselves is that important that it could only be done by us. Do not forget about Budapest, the next upcoming international CPAC. The CPAC Hungary will take place on the 25th and 26th of April. And all of you are more than welcome. And we're going to promote that and underline that we are the woke busters. And we should drain the swamp first in Brussels in June, and then here in the US in November in Washington, D.C.
I want to acknowledge Senator Tuberville. Senator, we're going to get you a chair. We'd like you to come join the conversation. I know Senator's kind of a come down for you. You were more important when you were a coach, but thank you, sir, for being here. The next person on the docket, Senator, is my wife, so I can't interrupt her. Okay, you understand? Mercy, take it away for all these great CPACs we've done to the South.
Well, Senator, thank you for being here, and thank you for letting me go before you. Bienvenidos a todos nuestros amigos de Latinoamérica por estar aquí. En CPAC es algo bien especial tener esta primera cumbre internacional. And I want to say welcome to all of our officials from Latin America who are visiting and joining us today in the first ever inaugural CPAC International Summit. It's truly an honor to have you here. We have representatives from Mexico, from Colombia, from Dominican Republic, and we have a very special guest with us, Patricia Bullrich, the Minister of Security, la Ministra de Seguridad de la Nación de Argentina. Mucho gusto. Gracias por estar con nosotros, Patricia. So I want to start before we dive into and talk about Argentina and specifically about this incredible election that you all won last year. Which we're very honored to have President Javier Milei join us on Saturday. CPAC started their international outreach to Latin America in Brazil. We held CPAC Brazil with...
Not today.
Not today. I don't think they'd want us in Brazil, Patricia. You're right. With President Jair Bolsonaro and Eduardo Bolsonaro. And that's when we learned that there's so many important ties between the United States and Latin America. And then we had the great honor of hosting CPAC Mexico with our telenovela, now presidential candidate, Eduardo Verástegui. And it was there that we met many of these incredible leaders in Latin America who were running for office in their country, one of them being President Javier Milei. And he was there as a candidate, and we had an opportunity to talk to him. And he talked specifically about the dangers and the horrors of socialism, the poverty it causes, how it destroys communities. Tell us, when you're looking at the reforms, economic reforms you're doing in Argentina, what are the biggest changes that your government is working on right now?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting us. Our president, as you said, is coming on Saturday. And really, we are very happy of what has happened in Argentina. Because for years and years, populism ruled Argentina. Now is the first time in many, many years that don't misunderstand, because I will say a word, liberal, that is not the way you understand it. No? So
we call them communists in this country now, Patricia, don't worry.
Well, in many years, a libertarian, a liberal president, that for us is like the opposition of the populist president, has won the elections. That is Javier Milei. And we are generating a very huge change, but incredible. We are really destroying the country that built a corporativism economy, a shut and impossible economy. Nobody can work in Argentina. Our labor laws, the way of doing business. Argentina was the 5th country in the world, and in the first years of the 20th century. And now we are the last in Latin America. So the destroy we have, now we are doing a new order, no? And this is because the Peronist party that now is not only corporatives corrupt, and now is in the left position. And they destroy the country. For example, today Argentina produces food for 400 million people. 400 million people. And 50% of the population of our country is below the poverty line. You can understand that it's only because of a political system that have destroyed all the ways of doing business, the rules of the capitalism, the way of understanding the law, the Republican values. They have generated a society that depends only on the state. We have provinces in Argentina, states, you say here states, we say provinces, we are a federal country as the United States, and we have provinces that 70% of the population, they live from state posts, from state jobs. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. No, our situation is terrible. So now we are doing a very important change. We are cutting all this state that produce inflation and poverty in the population. And
Déjame preguntarte algo. Did you all see that video when President Milei was like ripping off ministro de, and they would go through all the things. So it's the same conversation we're seeing with across the globe, which is el Estado administrativo, the administrative state, the deep state, the bureaucrats making these decisions that are destroying these countries and destroying our economies in so many ways. Is that what you're seeing in Argentina?
Yes. In Argentina, now we are, we say, I don't know how to say it in English, but we have a motosierra, no?
Oh, a chainsaw. Slap the chainsaw. Remember the chainsaw? Yeah, la motosierra.
The chainsaw. And
we want him to bring the chainsaw.
There.
Can he bring the chainsaw?
we have two.
Okay.
One for the United States and the other one for
We'd like the
Argentina.
CPAC chainsaw that.
So now in 60 days that we are in government, we have had a general strike. Mm-hmm. All the unions against us. We have 4 mobilizations and riots with a violence, incredible violence. We sent to the parliament a law of to try to simplify the economy of Argentina, cut all the privilege the political class have in Argentina, and the law now is
and it's all
we cannot they don't vote us the law. So we say, if you don't vote us the law, the provinces will not receive any money for the central government. So we are in a very huge fight. But we are going to win this fight because the populations have understood that they are living in poverty, they are living without education. Argentina was the first country in education in Latin America and the 3rd in the world. Yeah. And now we are in the last, we are last in Latin America. So the changes we are doing are very, very huge. But I want to say only one thing more. I know that I have to
No,
finish.
I want to ask you more
questions. We need help. We cannot do it alone. In Latin America, we have Maduro in Venezuela. Now we have in Central America, we have Nicaragua, we have Ortega, we have what is happening in Colombia, with Petrus. We are alone. Paraguay, Argentina, Uruguay, in the south part of the continent. But the continent is really needing the help of all a movement that support the changes we are doing. If Argentina change, we are going to be like a very important light for all Latin America.
Yes.
So we need the help of all.
I just want to say one thing. You know, Donald Trump talked about building a wall, and there's a wall in the Senate, and it's Senator Tuberville. So you're going to really have to talk to Senator Tuberville to get anything through the Senate, because you're one of the rare senators that thinks we should actually use our power when we believe in something. So as you hear all this around the table, do you have any words of encouragement for how we're going to collaborate with the freedom-loving people of Argentina?
Well, I was in Argentina last summer, and you got great wine, by the way. Great wine. It is a great country, but I felt, I guess it was last spring, I felt a lot of infiltration by China when I was there, speaking with people that live there, people at the port. And it was an amazing visit, but you just felt that presence kind of closing in on the people of Argentina. And we wish you the best. We want to help. The problem that we have here, again, you don't know who I am, but I'm not a politician, never been. Didn't think I'd ever be in politics. I was a football coach for 40 years.
Not that kind of football. The other football.
And after I retired from coaching, President Trump asked me if I'd run for the Senate. I said, for what? He said, we're going to need help.
So you are a coach senate.
Yeah, so now I'm a coach senator. So I ran and won. I've been here 3 years, so I've got so many new friends in a different world now that was in sports, now politics. I see a lot of my heroes here that I've watched on TV for years, trying to learn more and more about not just our country but the world. But I want to tell people this, though, and I'm just real short. Been in the Senate for 3 years. Our country's in trouble. You think you're in trouble? We're in trouble. There's not one thing that we're doing right since President Biden took office. I have no clue what they're doing. We're broke. We have no borders. Our military is woke. We have taken steps backward in almost everything. I came from the education world, and folks, let me tell you something. If we don't get our education back, it's over. It's completely over. Our kids are going south every day. So I'm glad to be here. I'm speaking tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and Mercedes and Matt, I want to thank them for inviting me to come over. We are in recess, but I wanted to come up and be part of this because I don't sleep well at night. I used to not sleep well before a game on Friday nights before we played. So I don't sleep well at any time now because what I see here in D.C. in what I don't call it swamp, I call it the clown world. You can't be any more stupid than we are up here of what we're doing. And people go along with it. I don't understand that. I mean, we are the best and should be the best and help people all over the world, the best country you can ever imagine. But we screw it up because we have socialist communists trying to change it. And we're not going to let that happen. So I want to thank you for letting me come and be part of this and look forward to talking tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Patricia, I do want to address the issue of Iran and Iran's influence. It's China's influence in Latin America, but it's Iran's influence in Latin America too. How are they using crime? How is Hamas involved? How is Hezbollah involved in Latin America right now? They are in our backyard, basically taking over and influencing these communist countries like Venezuela. And what is happening in Argentina?
Well, it's a very important issue because we think that as we are in a sense of urgency because today organized crime has long plagued our continent. You have a memorandum signed between Bolivia and Iran. We have Hezbollah in the free borders of Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay. We have had 2 bombing in Argentina from Hezbollah and from Iran. And now Hezbollah and we think that Hezbollah they do business in the free borders and they send money to fight against Israel. No, that we support Israel. Really, we support Israel. No, and the new way that the globalized criminal organization work, they buy the criminals, they pay for the criminals, so they have the criminals as proxies, you know. So they, for example, you have the Hezbollah, they pay in the jails, for example, of Brazil, they pay to an organization that is called PCC, is Primero Comando Capital, and the criminals that are in jail and they prepare for doing bombings and working with the terrorism and the criminal organizations are working together to destroy democracy, to destroy our countries, to destroy Israel, to destroy our way of life. So they are sophisticated networks that we have to work very, very hard. We are working in our borders because we have Bolivia that produce cocaine. We have Paraguay that they are friends, but they produce marijuana. And we have Peru that produce marijuana, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador that last month in 4 years they destroyed the country, the criminal organizations. So we are working to finish with this direct threats to our national security and our sovereignty. And we are really concerned about these rogue states utilizing criminal organizations as proxies. Yeah. This is a very, very important problem. We need the help of all the countries, because if the criminal organizations they manage the country, they manage the institutions, the judicature, the policies and the political networks, we are finished. So we are working a lot against this kind of network they are trying to build.
I think this is a perfect opportunity, Yitz, to bring you in this conversation on Israel, because I don't know, how many of you out there knew that Iran has been stationed in Latin America, and you have Hamas in Latin America, and you have Hezbollah in Latin America? Yeah, I don't think the legacy media is covering too much of it. So, Yitz, I mean, talk about this Hamas global network. I mean, we talk about the globalist elites, and now we're dealing with the globalism and how Hamas has pushed propaganda, not only here in the United States, but we're also seeing it in Latin America and across the globe.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Madam Mercy, for hosting this. And I think it's appropriate that we have the Israeli flag next to Gordon Chang's Twitter feed, as we pointed out, because we definitely need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I don't know how many of you know that that these lines on the Israeli flag are meant to evoke a prayer shawl. So we definitely need your prayers and appreciate your prayers. And I want to acknowledge Matt and Mercy from day one, from October 7th, have been stalwart, standing by Israel's side and praying, and we appreciate that. So to the question about Iran, about Hamas, about international jihad and Israel's role and where this all plays out. So I think it's clear to anybody who's an observer that what's happening right now in Israel, this existential war that Israel finds itself in, Israel is standing in defense of the West, really, and this is just one front, and we're all in this together, and that is why the partnership of all of our friends around the world is. It's not only about showing solidarity at a time of need, but it's really about realizing that Israel is fighting everyone else's fight right now. And so this is something that's important to realize. And while Hamas is part of a global Iranian web, an octopus, as they say, between you have Hamas, you obviously have in Lebanon, you have in Yemen, you have in other parts of the world. This is something that can come to any part of the world at any time. So it's critically important that we stand watch.
Let me ask you, Patricia, you talked about Lula, President Lula from Brazil. What were his comments about Israel?
Well, the last week, President Lula said that what is now happening in Israel and Lebanon and the Franja de Gaza is the conflict is like the genocide, you know? And our government was really very concerned about the words of Lula, and Israel talk in very important words, saying that was really unacceptable for Israel. And the ambassador of Israel was echado. How do you say echado? Taken away of Brazil. So they cut relationships between Brazil and Israel. They are really in the wrong way of the history. You know, we know what is Israel for democracy in the world. We know what is happening in Israel. We know what is doing Hamas and Hezbollah. We suffered 2 bombing in Argentina. The embassy of Israel was destroyed, and the DAI and the AMIA, that is the mutual of Israel in Argentina, was destroyed. 85 people killed. We suffer the violence of Hezbollah and Iran. So now Brazil is doing the contrary, that in all the history of Brazil and Latin America that we support Israel, they are doing exactly the wrong policy they have to do with Israel now.
Nigel mentioned about the pro-Hamas flags everywhere. You see these protests very organized all across the country. And talk about anti-Semitism here in the United States and what we've seen, and how is it possible that Israel can win that narrative again here in the United States?
Wow, that's a great question. And I want to acknowledge here in the crowd, we have a mentor, Julie Strauss-Levin, who's here. A lot of you know her. She is probably on the front lines on the legal battle.
She's the great one, but don't tell her husband. She's the great one, Julie Levin.
Right, the great one, and Mark Levin will be presenting on tomorrow, on Friday. So we look forward to that. So Julie's working especially on college campuses to figure out what are the legal limits for how we can do this. And I know just yesterday, President Trump spoke about this and said those who support Hamas should not be in our universities. They should not be coming to this country. They are not welcome. Very, very strong words. And it's that kind of leadership of being unequivocal about what's good and what's evil. You know, we believe conservatives were into common sense. Some things are right, some things are wrong. There's something wrong about those here in this country who are willing to equivocate on this issue when you have the naked evil of what Hamas has perpetrated in Israel. And you now have this major battle between good and evil. This is an opportunity for good people around the world to step up, be counted, speak out, not for Israel. Israel doesn't need your pity. Israel doesn't need your sympathy, but it's your opportunity to express what you believe in so that those around you and your family and your children know what you believe in.
Right. Nigel, can you address Europe's position? How are they handling, I should say, or how do you view it from kind of the outsider's perspective on their support of Israel?
All of Europe.
No, from an outsider's perspective.
I want to hear you defend Europe.
That's very
That's
funny.
why I asked him. This is going to be good.
Is that working?
No, you need a grab. Yeah.
That one is working. I think anti-Semitism, which you touched on, I'd be interested to get Liz's take on this, but it's almost become mainstream in Britain. It's almost become mainstream, particularly through the universities, the education establishments. You know, it's sort of veiled in criticism of Israel, but it very, very quickly moves to the other side. And we saw in fact, the first Saturday after the 7th of October, the big march in London, and, open public chanting on the streets in our country, from the river to the sea. So we're allowing on the streets of London, the kind of rhetoric that says that Israel should not exist, Israel should be obliterated, and semi-support. Again, people don't openly say we support Hamas, but they make it pretty clear through their statements. And so what you've seen today, and I touched on it earlier, Parliament Square full of Palestinian flags, and a younger generation who do not know anything of the Holocaust, who in some cases now don't even believe it happened. And so we're in a very, very frightening place. As far as Europe's concerned, the situation's actually worse. I mean, you would not, as a Jewish person today, you would not live in Brussels, you would not live in most of Paris, unless you were wealthy enough to live in a gated community. And I remember in my last year in the European Parliament, walking into the Parliament through a Jewish district, and you'd see the kids going to school with armed soldiers taking kids into school, and that was in Strasbourg, let alone Paris or Brussels. So I'm afraid we're in a very, very bad place. And we're going to see, I mentioned this earlier, we're going to see increased sectarianism. We're going to see the influence. The British Labour Party needs Muslim votes. It relies on Muslim votes. It had 86% of the Muslim vote at the last general election. It needs to keep those Muslim votes. And in our case, there are 300,000 Jewish voters in the UK. There are 4 million Muslim voters in the UK. And I'm afraid they're the hard facts of it. No, I think our future in terms of the Jewish communities in Europe, I'm sorry to say this, but I think it's very, very bleak indeed.
I think it's also worth pointing out that what Nigel is talking about predated the October 7th attacks. This is something that's been brewing for years. And it's not anti-Semitism, it's hatred of Jews. It's the old scratch the surface and there's the hatred of Jews.
Yeah, please. Liz, did you?
So first of all, I think we need to unequivocally support Israel. And there is far too much. There are far too many people internationally trying to split the difference. We know the appalling events of October the 7th, and it is backed by an insidious anti-Semitic campaign that has long been in the fringe left, but is now becoming more publicly acceptable. We haven't just seen that in Britain. We also see it on the streets of the US, particularly on US campuses. And, as I've said, things that were fringe in the past have now become socially acceptable to say, and we have to crack down on that. And, I think it's a big problem. However, if you speak to the vast majority of British people, they are very supportive of Israel. This is a minority view. But the problem is we are not cracking down on people who are openly supporting terrorism. That is the issue, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, which is not enough democratic accountability in many other institutions and an allowance of these left-wing extremist views to flourish. And often these things are connected. So often It's the extreme anti-capitalists, the extreme so-called environmentalists who are also peddling anti-Semitism. And what we need to do is we need to make sure that that is just not allowed to have these massive protests. And, I am very worried about the security of members of parliament. I mean, members of parliament are frankly being bullied now. They're being bullied at their surgeries. They're being bullied in public. And we cannot allow that if we believe in democracy.
If I may, on our university campuses, I think the funding, the number one funders are Muslim majority countries. The number one is Qatar, and it just goes down. PRC isn't even in the top 5 or 6. The billions and billions of dollars that are inculcating these kids with an anti-Semitic ideology. I was just on the Harvard campus, and it's all over. The kids are terrified on the conservative side.
Carla, we have a panel at CPAC this year called "Would Moses Go to Harvard?" And we know the answer, right? Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Matt. And I think there is a topic of anti-Semitism, which I think it's very appropriate that I should say something, because I very much agree with Nigel and with the Prime Minister that the situation is very worrying in the UK. And when you said that the situation in Europe is worse than the UK, I agree, except for my country. I'm very proud of that. And our Jewish friends in America, in Europe, in Israel know that very well. Hungary is the strongest political eye of the state of Israel. It is only us who defends the Israelis. When there is biased statements by the European Union and the United Nations, wherever we can, and just last week the Hungarian Prime Minister was the only one which vetoed an EU statement against IDF's operation in Gaza. I don't want to go into Gaza issue. It's very complex, of course, but the Israelis have a right to defend their own citizens. I mean, we Hungarians have the largest Jewish community on continental Europe after France. And in Hungary, there is a renaissance of Jewish life. Community life, religious life, cultural life. We are building synagogues. We are not destroying synagogues. And if you don't believe it, you should come and see it with yourself. And what is happening in the United States at universities, Ivy League universities, UPenn, Harvard, and you name it, it's horrific. Yeah. And our Prime Minister and our government has been and is being accused of being anti-Semitic by George Soros and the likes of him. And my colleague invites a member of the Hungarian parliament to a Shabbat dinner who openly called for listing Jews. I mean, this is outrageous what is happening, and I think you have a lot to do in Europe. And the thing is, strange it might sound that you have to win elections at home. And the problem is that if you go country by country in Europe, you will see that the Muslim voters largely outnumber those who are Jewish. So the European governments, each one of them, are anti-Israel because they want to win elections at home, except for Hungary.
May I just do additional approaches or dimensions to the question? First of all, while I totally agree with Ambassador Takacs, what you should know here in the US about the general European situation is, first of all, that the very first political ideology, which was anti-Semite in its roots, was socialism. That was invented by Karl Marx. All of these socialist ideas, let them be national or international, those are anti-Semite ideas. And what we should know, at least in Europe, that the nowadays left, the woke, inherited this anti-Semite legacy with Marxism as well. The nowadays leftist parties and leftist forces in Western Europe or anti-Semites are going against Israel. And what we should know is that the fight we do have against this anti-Israeli, anti-Semite approach is the very same fight, and maybe against the very same enemy that we do have for our European way of life. And the other thing what should be mentioned is what was highlighted by Nigel Farage, is that there is a very clear connection between the rising tendency of anti-Semitism and the rising tendency of illegal, and not only illegal, mass migration to Europe. And what shows the infantile behavior of socialist leftist parties and progressive parties all over Europe that now they do count on the Muslim vote. But there will be a point in the near future when the proportion of Muslims and other ethnic groups, anti-Semite ethnic groups, will reach a share, after which there will be no need for them to go after the Tory party or the Labour Party or SPD or CDU, CS in Germany, but they will establish their own parties within Europe.
Thank you, Miklos. Matt Whitaker, this has been a wide-ranging conversation. I want to acknowledge your great work with CPAC, your work on the board of CPAC. You've gone to many of these international CPACs. Do you have any kind of concluding comments that you'd like to add? Or come on.
I'm a lawyer. I can't help it. Hey, everybody. Good to see all my friends. I was enjoying this so much. And Steve, it's good to see you, my friend. And you brought a great team with you, as you always do. I'm going to be very brief, even though I am a lawyer. And I get paid by the
good.
word.
Brief is good.
Yeah, especially $5 words. Yes. Bill comes to you, Rick. Give me your address again. I think it cannot be overstated how important these relationships internationally are. I know that many have been working on this project for a long time to make sure that we are, as conservatives, sharing our ideas and ideals. I mean, we're rooted in a foundation of the Judeo-Christian traditions that Miklos talked about. And I think it's so important that we don't give up the fight. Because, you know, I think of so many times, really in human history and world history and biblical history, where it was so dark. And it's always darkest before the dawn. And I just know that a Savior came, and I know that a Savior will come again. And I think we are the hands and feet here on earth, and we have to do so much work, but we cannot give up. Do not give up hope. Never give up hope. We cannot lose hope, because we are going to win. Our way of life is going to win. But you know what? We have to win. So go fight.
Very nice, Matt. And then...
Can I just add one quick thing to that? I just want to add really quickly. Look, we're all in the front line, and these people around this table, really thank you. Thank you for being the warriors in your countries. Thank you for standing up for truth. Thank you for standing up for freedom. We need this now. This is a time that we're going to fight harder than we ever have before. We've got to defeat the communists. We have to defeat the World Economic Forum. We have to defeat the World Health Organization, defeat the United Nations. It is time. It is time.
All right, we're not done. Hold on. So while everybody's standing, can Dr. Robert Malone keep standing and everyone else sit down? Where's Dr. Malone? I see him in the back there. There he is, one of my heroes. Dr. Robert Malone, thank you for being here. Thank you for the great work you do. And Jill, we appreciate you. Is he coming up to... Okay, so did you want to say something, Robert? Okay, he's just saying hello. Good man. Okay, so we're going to move to some business. So we're going to conclude very quickly here. Rick, Miklos, KT, Andrew, Jay, Stan, Gordon, that's it. And we are going to have some real diplomacy here, some international cooperation. We have 3 resolutions that we'd like to pass together, speaking in one voice. And we'll read them very quickly. We passed them earlier at our board meeting. That I see Jerry Daniels and Christos and Matt and Priscilla, who were here earlier at the board meeting, and Les. And so we're going to read them right now. And let's send the world a message. The first resolution, this would come from all of our CPAC organizations. We condemn the police state tactics of Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Lula da Silva, and Joe Biden. We condemn all of their attempts to silence, legally harass, and imprison their main political opponents. These are election interference crimes. In particular, we wish to lend our voice in strong support against the legal persecution being waged against Jair Bolsonaro, Jimmy Lai, and President Donald Trump. Can the ACU board members present around this table and those of you who run CPAC organizations express your support by saying aye? Wonderful. The first one passes. And I'll let Mercy, can you get that to the White House immediately? I think that would be good. The second resolution, and Elizabeth, you're going to like this, and so is Dr. Malone. We condemn the attempts of the World Health Organization, in coordination with the Biden administration, the Chinese Communist Party, and the Gates Foundation, to surrender national sovereignty to a de facto global government through a radically revised public health quote-unquote treaty. The WHO agenda is a deliberate takeover of national government sovereignty in order to implement the global elite's oppressive agenda, which is an assault on communities, families, and religion. We stand strongly on the side of national sovereignty. This is an attempted WHO takeover of human dignity, and CPAC stands strongly against it. We encourage all freedom-loving countries to follow President Donald Trump's lead and move to exit or defund the World Health Organization. CPAC board members and our international partners, please signal your support by saying aye. And the final resolution, Yitz, you want to read the third one?
Israel is one of the few countries in the Middle East to exemplify the values of liberty, justice, and freedom. Globalists, anti-Semites, and terror cartels are working hand in hand to annihilate the state of Israel. CPAC calls on nations around the globe to stand on the side of Israel, to recognize Jerusalem as her proper capital, and to fight religious discrimination in all its forms. Further, CPAC stands with our close ally Israel and supports Israel's military operations to achieve total victory in Gaza and other fronts. CPAC calls on Joe Biden to end the hostage crisis in Israel and eliminate the Iran-backed Hamas terrorists. These terrorists committed the deadliest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust. CPAC also condemns the reprehensible rise of anti-Semitic attacks on Jewish students, educational institutions, and all throughout society. Today and every day, CPAC stands with Israel.
Once again, signify your support by saying aye. Aye. This is history. We've never come together in this way before. And I think we're sending 3 very important messages to the world, and these will be posted immediately. I'd like to give Rick, Ambassador Grinnell, the chance to make some concluding comments. And Steve, I'd like you to do that as well. So you want to start?
I mean, I'll just keep it very quick and simple. Thank you all for coming. I think the international conservative movement is incredibly important. And to share ideas, as others have said, I think is the way forward. Thank you for coming, Madam, former Prime Minister, but we now get to call you Liz, I guess. It's such a privilege to call a Brit by their first name. Thank you all for attending. I hope we get to do this next year. And I want to finish by saying one other point that I think is incredibly important, that we always got to remind people as we go into the 2024 election, which is Vladimir Putin wants Joe Biden to win.
I think Matt Whitaker said it best. We will win because we have to win. And I look around this table and in this audience, we got a team full of fighters. So let's fight.
I want to thank everyone for your participation, for everybody who participated in the conversation. We're going to take a quick group photo in the center here, so please move to the center. God bless you all. It's going to be a wonderful CPAC. Please enjoy your time here.
Ladies and gentlemen, the reception will happen right in this room right now, so please stick around. There'll be food and drink in the back. The reception will happen in this room, so please stay around.